Good morning, everybody. How are you? Seems funny doing a bucket hat video when we hardly have the weather for it, but I'm remaining hopeful that the weather will come and we'll be very grateful of having a bucket hat. And who's to say that it has to be in like colourful cottons like this? So you see the dog just sneaking past. It could also be in like thicker fabrics. I'd probably suggest you did a thinner fabric first just to get used to the pattern. And then you could try any fabric you like. So I'm just going to come in the chat actually. 2 seconds. I think I just press this button. 2 seconds. I don't know how to write a comment actually. I might have to do it afterwards. Anyway, I've got a pattern that I want to share with you. So I'll pop that in after I've finished. But basically it's a website that I found. It's a free download. You know, you can't sell hats or anything like that. But it's called, so look, Waves and Wilds. So if you can't find the link or when I post it later, you could literally just put it on Google, Waves and Wild bucket hat, and it will be the first search. It's a very popular pattern that you can download for free, and then you'll be off. So some people are a bit scared of downloading patterns and having them turn up at your printer like this, but honestly, it isn't too scary. There's a few things to make sure that you don't make a mistake. For instance, in the instructions first, it will explain how to print the pattern. They actually have quite a detailed explanation of how you can print it so that you don't get all the sizes, that you just get the size you want. I don't actually bother with that. I think the lines are quite clear. So I just print out all the sizes at once. I think that's totally fine for this pattern. You then, when you do print it out, as long as you follow their instructions where you have to print out at 100% of the size, you then just need to take a ruler and just double check that this measures 1 inch or this here measures 2 centimeters. If it doesn't, then you have a problem. All right. And then you have to go back to the instructions and double check that you did everything correctly and maybe tinker with your printer a bit. It's no point carrying on. So always, whenever you print off a pattern, I don't know that I've ever known it not to be there, is some sort of little grid that you can just double check with a ruler and make sure that you've printed it correctly before you carry on. I often even, like, especially if it's more pages than this, I just print off the page that shows that first before I obviously print off the 17 pages or whatever that are required. And then putting them together is quite easy because they've all got these little circles in the corner. This is a particularly good one. So you just have to, I'm going to skip actually, I've Blue Petered this quite a lot. So here's one I prepared earlier. I've stuck it together so that the circles and the lines are all complete, so everything matches up. I've just used a bit of sellotape, a little bit of masking tape, things like that work as well. And you just want your full pattern printed out to size like so. Now you can see this pattern that they give you. It starts from what age? A newborn to 3 months, and it ends at extra large adult. So there's about 10 or 12 sizes in between, which is great because I do think having a hat that fits is really important. So the little ones, let me just find you some examples. This I think was a like age 1 kind of hat. So that's kind of a nice cute little mini hat like that. And again, I'd probably suggest if you're newish to sewing or this is kind of quite difficult for you, you know, it's a bit harder than what you're used to, just stick to making a bigger hat first because everything's a little bit harder when it's smaller. We've done Welsh versions of them where we've added webbing around the outside, and then we found these cool little Welsh logos. Had a go at those. These are some of my earlier drafts. I'm not very happy with these. I kind of keep these for demos, but I'll explain what I did wrong so that you don't do that. Yeah, and I think that's it. But yeah, I've made loads of them because they're great. And then the great thing is with them, obviously, is that they're reversible. So you can wear them one way and then you can put them on the other way. So you can go plain and patterned, or you can also have all the different panels in different colours as well. Totally up to you. All right, so when you cut out your pattern from here, you obviously have 3 parts. This is the top of your hat. You just need 1 of those in each colour. This here is like the side of the hat, this bit here, and you need 2 of each colour. And then this big curvy thing is the brim, and you need 2 of each of the colours of those. So I just cut it from the paper, pin it to my fabric like I've done here. Let me just lower this now. I think you don't need to see me anymore. My hat. Let's get sewing. So I would have pinned it to the fabric. If you've got a pattern that you specifically want to see, you may want to do 1 at a time. But if you're happy like this one, where it's denim, I cut both at the same time, like so. All right. the grain line. So the grain line is the side, kind of the edge of the fabric that ideally should be going that way. I don't know that it really matters for a hat, to be honest, but I guess it depends on if you're the sort of fabric you're using. The same for this one here, like things like grain line there make me laugh because it kind of doesn't really matter because it's a circle. Anyway, so one of those and then two of the brim, like so. All right, I've just realised I've chosen a terrible fabric to demonstrate with because it's quite hard to see which is the front and which is the back, but hopefully you can see that this nice brighter blue is the front of the fabric and this lighter blue is the back. Now, the one thing that I made a mistake of with these first ones that I made was that this is really floppy and it doesn't hold its structure. So even if I use denim now, I always use some interfacing. You can decide what weight interfacing you have. Maybe you hopefully have some at home, but I do think it is worth adding. So basically, you just cut out the same size as your pattern, some interfacing. I've got some black stuff here, and I've just placed it down so the rough, sticky side is facing the back of my fabric. So that's the front for later. All right. So this is just going to stiffen the brim up a little. One thing we often do here, I don't know if I've got one on here actually, on my little trolley. I don't know if I have. No, is we often use Teflon sheets. That's quite a good way when you're doing something like interfacing, because maybe you don't have to totally not see me. Here we go. Teflon sheets are quite handy for not damaging your iron and not damaging your ironing board, because these are obviously quite sticky. So I just, those irons, the ones that you get for the oven, we use those here, but they must be on the other trolley. So yeah, I'm going to trust myself to iron it onto the surface there. So that pattern, when you download it, it'll come with instructions. So this is just me kind of doing a video version of those, because I'm not very good at following written patterns. I find it quite stressful. I need to see someone do it to understand things. So on both parts of the brim, and I would only, depending again on the fabric you've chosen, but generally I think it's only necessary on one side. So you don't want it really, really thick, but it depends on what you want. This is one of those things, as you can tell from how many I've made, is once you've made one, you want to make loads of them. So you might find that you'll get a little production line going, and it'll be the gift of the year. So then I put the two good sides together. So that's my bright blues facing each other. Now the really important thing with this, oh sorry, my mouse is here, 2 seconds. And the really important thing with this project is that you use a 10mm seam allowance. If you start doing different size seam allowances, then everything won't fit together. It's a small project. It is really important that you get your seam allowances correct. So I'm just going to sew that. I'll lower this so you can see. So on your sewing machine, there's a bunch of numbers, and as long as your needle is in the middle, and if it's not, put it there. You've got the I've got the numbers 10, 15, 20. I'm trying to remember what an inch it is. I think it's like 3/8 of an inch. I'm not very good at my inches. I think that must be right. 3/8 of an inch. So yeah, 10mm, 1 centimetre away. And I'm just making sure that the edge of the fabric is along that 10 line. So therefore, when I sew it, it'll be 1 centimetre away from the edge, or 10mm. Forward and reverse. All right, so the edges I've just sewn together then is this big brim smiley one, and then I've just sewn those two together. I'm about to sew to exactly the same on the other side. I've just noticed my interfacing is actually a tiny bit bigger than my fabric. The interfacing obviously doesn't matter. The fabric matching is the important thing. So in fact, I'm just going to put a pin. I'm being a bit naughty not putting pins. I'm sure you would be better behaved than me. I've just found my scissors. I'm just going to, where are they gone? There. I'm just going to trim off that interfacing because it's going to confuse my vision as to where the edge of the line is. So now the edge is even. Okay. So I'm just doing a bit forward and reverse and then sewing it all the way to the end. Cool. Nice. All right, so I've got my little smile, and that's going to become, when I open it up, the brim that goes around my head. The next one to do It's going to be exactly the same with these two, so no interfacing required on these. Let me just come back in a minute. No interfacing required on these, but just beautiful sides, the right sides facing each other. Pop some pins in there. All right, and then sew the sides of this down here and down here. You would then also be doing this for your other colour. So I'm just going to do one side today because I've got some half-made ones already. So you would be doing exactly the same stages for your lining, or the other way around. Bunching up a bit. Let me just start a bit lower. I think maybe just because the fabric was a bit thick. Just check if anything's wrong with the machine. Okay, so now the side of my hat also is done. So this would be a good time. This is a kid's hat. This shouldn't fit me. If it does fit me, then we have a problem. So let's have a look. Yeah, it's a bit small. But that's a good time to check, is see if your hat fits you. So then before you carry on with all the hard work, you could, that's the important part. So hopefully that would fit. I think I did a age 7 to 12 child. So that should be fine for them because it's way too small for me, which is good. My hat back on. Right. Hi, Catherine, how you doing? Like my hat. So we now need to put the two things together. All right. So we've got this one. This is important that you know that this wider part, this bottom part here, is the bit that goes over your head. So the narrower part is where the circle, the top of the hat's going to go, like so. All right. So I'm just going to lower the camera again. Thanks, Catherine. I'm just going to show you how we pin it so that it's kind of less confusing. So I just need to do my own head how I'm doing. I got distracted by lovely Catherine being there. Say hi to her. So yes, okay. So I need to put the narrower part facing up, the wider part at the bottom, pop the hat on top, like so. And then I'm going to be pinning it, but I'm going to be pinning it up towards the top. And I'll show you why. Basically, later on, that's really handy. So I'm just going to turn him over, actually be easier this way. And I'm going to pin it all the way around. So I'm pinning, so on the table now is the circle, and then in my hand is this opening here is the wider part. The reason I like this way is that it's quite easy to sew it afterwards. You could have done it the other way, so don't worry if that little random demonstration didn't make any sense. But you'll see when I get to the next stage why I opted for this way, because I find it's quite good that you can do something as I will show you in a sec. Split the seams as you pass them, so that just means opening the seams so you're not going through a big bulk of fabric all at once. And so yeah, let us know where you're going to wear your hats if you make them, if you're going to make a whole family set of them so you all get to match. I'm sure your family will love that. There we go. Now if, like already, can you see I've got a tiny little excess there, like it's so miniature, but the problem is when I sew around it now, that is going to definitely fold over, and then I'm going to have a little, like a little bump in my hat. So what I might do, like I think I did 10 mil, but I'm going to go a tiny bit further in on there, and then that should mean that that tiny little bump will disappear. So don't be afraid to tinker with the pattern a little bit. It is quite important. You will be, you don't want a little crease. That's the problem with the hat. Everything is visible. So I've just gone a little bit inside, and I'm only just going to do the beginning bit. I'll show you what I've done now. You see, I've just, maybe it's clearer on that side. I've done a tiny bit extra there, which was about the size of that tiny bump. And then it's a bit of a cheat, to be honest, but I'm not the best cutter. So it will help make sure that when I now sew it all together, that it's flat all the way around. Yeah, that seems right. So that weird way that I do things is because I like this now, is what I then do is I lower all the excess fabric. So this isn't in the instructions, by the way, that you get with the pattern download. So you feel free to use the way that they suggest, but I just have found that I quite like having everything flat like this. So I've just put one pin on the excess bit of fabric there, and now I can just go around in a circle. The thing I need to be careful of as I go around in this circle is one, that these seams, I need to put a better pin there actually, that these seams get flattened as I pass them, like so. All right, and that also that I don't get any puckers of fabric, so I need to take it quite slowly. You can start absolutely anywhere and you can finish, you just need to finish at the same place. You're going to go all the way around the full circle, and again trying to keep to that 10 mil distance away. 2 seconds. I think when I was messing around with it earlier. There we go. Right. Back. So 10 mil away from the edge, just a little forward and reverse at the beginning, and then off I go all the way around, trying to keep all the layers nice and flat. So you'll notice I'm constantly just tweaking the fabric, making sure that what goes underneath my presser foot is flat. So this is why I suggested don't start small. I do think it's harder if you make a small hat. So this is, you know, even now me doing an age 7 to 12 is a little bit harder than if I was to do an adult's extra large. But there we go, almost there. It's that tiniest little bump at the end, tiniest. What would probably be a good idea would be to start your sewing near a seam. So look, honestly, it's like, I think I can flatten it, the tiniest little bump there. So it's going to be fine. But maybe actually if I started my sewing near a seam, at least then I could maybe adjust that seam so that it went all the way in. Some bad sewing actually, not a great circle, but you get the idea. The pressure. So what you can do then is you can do a few little snips in the excess bit here. That's called like easing it in. So just do some little triangles, and that'll just mean when you turn it the right way round that it'll be nice and round. There won't be bulky bits, so you can do a little bit of a better job than me. I'm doing like wavy lines, but you can do like proper triangles. And I'll just make your flat hat less heavy. So I've just done some little zigzaggy lines. All right, and then you can turn it the right way around, and hopefully you have something that kind of is like a little kind of fez hat for now. So it's just the top bit of the hat. And again, just double check that it all fits you, and then you can carry on to the next stage. So the next stage is to now pin your brim there. Okay, so just again, goes, I think around it goes. We want good sides together. Yeah, all right. So I put the good side, the donut facing up, and then I'm putting the hat. Oh, I just had it then. That's right, isn't it? Yes, yeah. So putting the kind of the fez hat, the open edge, onto the inside edge there. I'm matching up my seams as I go. So I've got the hat, good sides facing each other by there. I'm going to put the pins, though, so just to make it more confusing, on the outside here. I just needed to visually see that I'm making a hat. All right, sorry about that, just haven't made one for a while. So opening up those seams on both sides, and again, start pinning all the way around the circumference. Now this takes a while. Let me just see. I've got loads here that are like half made. Yeah, here we go. Here's one I prepared earlier. This one is the lining. So let's get this one done for you so you can see what you're doing. Right. Just putting a couple of extra pins in it. There you go. Because the pinning takes like as long as anything else. So what I do for this bit is I remove the bottom bit of my sewing machine, like so. Let's try and get a better angle, like so. So it's a little bit narrower, the base plate, because what I find is quite useful is if you slot your hat underneath your sewing machine like that, and then there's no drama that you could accidentally sew through everything. What I'm going to do then is just sew that entire line. So, I didn't learn from my mistake from last time. Probably start near a seam would be good. And then at least you can make any changes if you have made a little bit of a boo-boo with either the cutting or the toenail. So all the way around. And again, not the fastest bit of sewing because you need to constantly check that the two bits of fabric are dead flat on top of each other. And ideally, obviously matching, like the edges are matching up nicely. As soon as you get a bit lazy with that, then you could have a problem down the road. I was in the zone there. I hadn't realised I'm back to the beginning. I overlapped myself. Here we go. Right. So that's that. So now we have. So now you would basically everything you've just done, you would repeat for your other colour. You would create your put your side to your top, and then put your brim to your side, and sew it all together like so. So then, forget that this is unfinished. You would have two hats like so. So let me just go back to my blue Peter because I have got, again, some more hats that have half been made. I need to finish some of these at some point. It's generally where I've like been playing around with things. So the interfacing is a bit weird on this one, but you get the idea. I cut them much nicer now. So all you're going to do then is pin the two hats together. So let's just go down here. Just check this. So take again the two seams, make sure they're split so you haven't got a bulk of fabric, and then you're going to pin the whole circumference of the two circles together. Oh, by the way, hopefully it's quite obvious, but it's the beautiful sides facing each other. All right, so the right sides are facing in, and then the ugly sides are facing out. The wrong sides are facing out. Just going to go around with a load of pins on the outside. Again, I'm being quite stingy with my pins, but I obviously don't want to keep you on here forever. So feel free to take a little bit longer or use pegs if you prefer pegs. So. I hope these are matching hats actually. Those seams don't match. They've been sat in the drawer for ages. I just assumed they were matching. I know one's much bigger than the other, is it? Oh yeah, one is much bigger than the other. They're different size patterns. Right, I'm just going to pretend this bit, 2 seconds, and I'm going to show you what to do. It's fine. This is the easy bit now. Okay, let's pretend, yeah, they're different size patterns, unfortunately. So what you've got then is you've got nice, in theory, a nice 2 circles with all your hat in the center. To avoid any problems with any fabric getting caught, I gather all the stuff in the center, like so, and then I just put some pins or some pegs on it, just so that you only have those 2 layers of fabric. You've got no problem with any, excuse this bit sticking out. Like I said, I think they're different size patterns. What you're then going to do, I'll just show with a scissor, is you're going to sew like 80% of the circumference. Okay, so you're going to start anywhere, and then you're going to leave about a hand width, because that's where you're going to turn it out afterwards. Actually, the 10mm seam allowance isn't so important here, because maybe you don't want to have such a huge brim. You may want to think, I think the pattern has got quite a large brim on it. I quite like a large brim, but sometimes a man doesn't like such a big brim. So you may want to consider taking it shorter. Also, when you turn it out, you can always, obviously, if you're not happy and you feel like the brim is too big, you can always turn it back the wrong way and then go a little bit further inside that line. So I guess in ways you're best off going quite big first, turning it the right way around, trying it on, and then if you feel unhappy, you could turn it back and then make it a bit smaller the next time by going a little bit further in. So yeah, so you're just going to be forward and reverse. You're going to be going all the way around. I'll just pretend not to do it. Here we go. Like I said, these patterns unfortunately don't match. So you just be going wherever you think will be right as far as the brim you want, forward and reverse, and then taking it all the way round and stopping for a big enough hole. Like I said, we normally do about a hand width distance there, and then pulling that out. And then you birth, let me find my next one. Here we go. Then you birth the hat. So I've kind of cheated here a bit because I have done the next stage as well. All right, so when you pull it out, you have the hat, you can put it together. You will definitely need to give it a bit of an iron to get it all nice and flat. And whilst you're ironing it, you're going to need to kind of tuck in those edges that are open at the moment. This one has been top stitched already, so that just means that we've just gone round it. So you just put it in the on the sewing machine, maybe with your bed back together again now. A nice flat surface to do this bit. And then you're just going to forward and reverse, and then you're just going to do a full circle, really quite close to the edge. So that looks quite nice, but what you may want to do is then do the concentric circles. So that is, let me just show you on my hat here, is these little lines here. So just rows and rows and rows of straight lines. I'm just going to use pink on this black and white hat. It's only kind of a scrappy hat anyway. I think it'll actually look quite nice in pink. So what you'll find, you can do it as a circle and then stop and then move it in and do another circle and then stop. But you do get quite a lot of ends with that, obviously, and it does look a bit unneat if you're doing the reverse method. So what we have been doing is go forward and reverse to start. And the distance I am from that line that I did my, my first row, where I did my top stitching, I lost my words there. I'm the silver presser foot away from that. That's quite a good visual for me. Again, I'd suggest going much slower than this. This one has been quite well ironed, so it's quite easy to follow. Okay, when I get to the end where my pink lines meet by here, rather than connect to that line, I'm going to go up to it, and then I'm going to shimmy off to the left, and I'm going to kind of go till my silver foot, there you go, goes along my first line, my first concentric circle. And then off I go again. So I'll show you what that looks like now. I can finish that off later, so I'll just quickly show you it. So you do get, like mine's bright pink, so I've kind of gone off and I've done this line. But if they all get done at the same place, it actually doesn't really matter. It kind of looks quite neat, I promise. This isn't a very good example of it looking quite neat. Oh, there's a bit of thread stuck in it as well. There you go. But it is a lot easier than kind of stopping and starting at the end of each row. And then you can do about 3 or 4 rows of that. Just be careful that the hat doesn't get caught. So you may even want to pop some pins where the 2 hats meet to make sure that the fabrics don't slide underneath, and kind of you turn your hat over and you've realised you've gathered a load of fabric by there. So maybe before you start, pin the 2 hats together in the centre, so that all that you have out here is the brim. And I think that's it. I'll have a quick look, see if there's any. I don't think there's any questions. I'm having, like I said, it looks okay down here. So yeah, if you do have any questions, do let me know. And I do come back and check the chat, and then I'll go on to Facebook now and I'll post the link to the pattern if you do fancy giving it a go. But like I said, yeah, feel free to start it with like some old fabric, because it is a bit fiddly, and then jump in and make a nice one after that. I think you'll enjoy it. It's a good project, and it takes probably I could probably do them now from start to finish in about an hour, 90 minutes, something like that. So much more enjoyable than going to the shops and buying one. All right, have a good afternoon, and I'll see you again in August for painting a tropical scene. So I'll see you then. All right, have a good day. Bye.